Because we have one of our biggest groups of the year running the Carmel Marathon, half marathon, 10K or 5K, I wanted to do a quick video. I know some of you are going into this and you've done it a million times before. You don't need any last minute instruction. As a matter of fact, I would like to think that everybody's ready to go. And this is more to relieve my stress than give you any last minute pointers because you have it all down. But let's go through where we are now through race day. And as I'm recording this on Wednesday evening, we have Thursday, Friday, and then race day. And what we want to do on Thursday is stay in our routine. Most of you normally run on Thursday. Some weeks are shifted, but certainly for this week, I have most people running on Thursday because Friday will be very light or off. And we don't want to go too many days off consecutively before a race. So tomorrow, go out and run. Don't look for signs of fitness, certainly by trying to run too hard, just a mile or two at goal pace or anything like that. That was all for Tuesday. That's over. So go out, run easy, and don't read too much into it. If you feel great, great. If you feel terrible, so what? It doesn't matter. Races in 2 days. We don't want to peak on Thursday, right? We want to peak on Saturday. So don't read too much into that. Stay in your routine, do your normal stretching, do all those things that you normally do. Avoid the temptation to start adding things. Well, I saw online there's this great pre-race stretching. Don't do it. Anything new other than racing faster than you've ever raced before is probably a bad idea. So stay in routine, do your normal stuff, eat normally, maybe a little bit more than normal on Thursday, especially because we're reducing training. You would think we'd want to reduce that. For 5K, 10K, and maybe even half marathon, that's not too big a deal. For a marathon, we're trying to peak your glycogen stores, so make sure that you have enough. If your appetite's down just a little bit because you didn't run as much, it doesn't matter. Kind of eat as normal as you can. Try to get good sleep on Wednesday night, tonight, and then also Thursday night. You have to count on Friday night being a little bit of tossing and turning. If you sleep great, that's fantastic, but don't count on it. Bad sleep the night before a race doesn't really matter. It's what has happened the several nights before. So if you don't get much sleep on Wednesday night or Thursday night and Friday night, yeah, that's probably going to have an impact. But some tossing and turning on Friday night, waking up thinking it must be time to go, and it's 11:30, then it's 1:30, and you're seeing every hour on the clock. That's how world records are set. I doubt anybody is sleeping soundly the night before a big race. So if you can do that, great. If not, don't worry about it. It's not really going to be impactful. As far as Friday goes, if you have been running just a little bit before your long runs, before your races, we want to do that again, even if it's the marathon. It might be as simple as 15, 20 minutes, 2 or 3 miles, whatever. It doesn't really matter. Just stay in routine. Now, if you're a PM runner, maybe we don't want to do that. If you're going to run on Friday, we want to do as early in the day as possible. Before breakfast would be ideal, certainly before lunch, because we're trying to tap out those glycogen stores for you marathoners, right? And even half marathoners, that's an important thing. So we don't want to be having a couple of meals and then borrowing from that during the run. Get it done early. Again, stay in that routine. Also plan Thursday, plan Friday. Know what you're doing. Try not to be rushing around. There's enough crazy already going on in your head. You don't need crazy going on because you're waiting for somebody, or you're not sure when you're going to go pick up your packet, or all these other variables that are very controllable, and you can reduce stress by doing a little bit of planning. So have those days planned out, when you're going to run, what your work schedule is. Real life doesn't necessarily stop. Maybe some of you have taken Good Friday off or get Good Friday off, and that works out really well. But plan that day. Make sure that you're not burning mile 24 and 25's energy on stress the couple days before. Eat plenty on Friday. One of the things that took me a while to learn with marathoning was I'd get close to the race and I would start paying attention and trying to cut out the stuff that wasn't so great. And I tried to clean up my diet, and it ended up I just wasn't eating enough. So before the first marathon where I felt really good and got to 20 and was excited there was only 10K to go instead of, dear God, there's 10K to go, I just made a conscious effort to eat a lot the day before. And I'll tell you, it wasn't the greatest food. It was in Boston, and I know the lunch before I had chicken tenders at a bar because it was convenient. I didn't have to wait for it. And then that night, the pasta thing and all that. But I went into that race with enough calories. The point of that is make sure that you're eating enough, especially half marathoners and marathoners. Again, 5K, 10K, those are intense races, but we're not dealing with glycogen depletion issues that we are in the longer races. So do that. The other big thing is hydration. And the human body doesn't work like a car. In a car, you can be almost on empty and go fill up with gas or oil or whatever, and you're fine. The human body doesn't fill up that way. There's an absorption rate. So you can't ignore it throughout the day on Friday and decide, I'm going to have 2 liters of water now and I'll be ready to go. It's too late. So make sure on Thursday you're not getting behind, so you're not starting Friday on a deficit. Friday, drink systematically throughout the day. It doesn't have to be a whole lot. But if you do, maybe 8 ounces every hour or so, and that's a pretty good amount for most of you. If you find yourself going to the bathroom a couple times an hour, ease off. You're okay. Now, you might wait 2 hours before you have something else, but drink throughout the day. The idea of that is to make sure that you're fully hydrated before you get to dinner. And you have something to drink with dinner, you're fine, but you're not having to drink and try to catch up at night, because there's no chance you're sleeping if you're trying to catch up with your hydration the last couple hours before bedtime. And then certainly when you get up on Saturday morning on race day, you shouldn't be worrying about hydrating. Sure, have some water, have coffee, whatever it is that you normally have, you can have that. But don't think I have to have a liter of fluid or 32 ounces or whatever. That should be done. Because if you're trying to get it done in that morning, when you go to the porta-john before the race, when you're done, go to the back of the line, because you're going to keep doing that, because that's going to be running right through you. And at mile 2, you're going to be looking for the porta-johns. Get that done early on Friday so you're not trying to cram for the test, so to speak. So those are the important things on Friday. Manage your stress. Make sure you've had enough calories. Normal foods, plenty of them. It's not the Last Supper. You don't have to gorge yourself or anything, but have plenty. And then make sure that you're hydrated and you're doing that throughout the day. When the nerves come up, and I know as long as I've been doing this, and I don't race a whole lot anymore, but when I do, I get nervous and the crazy gets stirred up, the butterflies, all that. And what I've tried to train myself to do, and sometimes I do this better than others, is I try to think about what's my race plan. And there's something about going through, rather than just being nervous about what's going to happen, what's the weather going to be like, how am I going to feel, what's going to happen when I get to that point on the course. All these things that will play themselves out just fine. I try to go through my plan. Here's what I can control. And as you know, in our new shirts, I love the phrase, run smart, run hard, because that's really all you can control. So when you're getting nervous, if you think through that plan and think, okay, here's how my morning unfolds. Here's when I need to be at the race. Here's when I need to be lining up for the race. Here's what I want to do for a warm-up. Here's how I want to feel throughout the first couple of miles. Yes, I know I want to run this pace, but I want to match that up to how I'm feeling. You go through that, maybe some positive visualization on think back to some great training runs that you had. I know some of you have had training runs that, okay, we should have just kept going because that was a PR day in training. You know it's there. So think about those things. Think about all those positive signs of fitness that you're carrying into this race. And that's what we're looking for throughout the period. We don't want to do that in the last week or two necessarily, but look at what you've done. Some of you have run some races in the last couple of weeks with terrible weather, and you've done okay. But you also know, really, can it get worse? Sure, it can always get worse, but not likely. You may have seen the worst of it. So think about all those positive things and all those reasons you have to be optimistic, and think about that as you go through your plan. So race day, make sure you're there in plenty of time. You don't want to be fighting for parking. You don't want to be hurrying. You don't want to be getting upset with somebody that you're traveling with, whether it's an innocent bystander or a fellow racer. You don't want to be getting upset with them because the nerves are getting the better of you, and it's really getting crazy. You want to be there in plenty of time, a little time to relax, time enough to warm up, time enough to make adjustments if you need to in clothing. We'll talk about weather here in a second, or shoes, or whatever it is. You can make all those changes and you don't have to rush and do it at the last minute. As we have for most years, our tent will be there at the last turn heading to the finish. Use that as your home base. So if you're not sure about something until maybe you're done with your warm-up and you have clothing options, you can have those there. Do I need long sleeve? Do I need arm warmers? Do I need maybe a jacket because it's raining? Whatever it is, have those options with you, so that's very easy to get to. So now we're lined up for the race. Now it's getting real crazy. The nerves are kicking in. Some of you may actually get more calm once you get to the start line. I know I do. Once I'm there, I'm ready to go. Let's shoot the gun. Let's get going. I hate standing around. But once I'm there, okay, now I'm in my element. Now it's about running, and we're good. Just waiting for that gun to go off. Now I can tell you, a race the size of Carmel, adrenaline will be a factor. Adrenaline combined with going uphill to start the race will be a factor. I'm standing there looking at the race starting. I'm getting all fired up. I'm ready to go. So I know if you're there and you've been training hard for this race and you're ready to go, the gun goes off, the adrenaline goes crazy. You have no idea of how hard you're working. You probably feel comfortable, but you're working way too hard. So when in doubt, give it a little while. Certainly get to the top of the hill, get to the turn, and it goes downhill a little bit, by the way. Get through that before you start feeling like you're giving any effort at all. Just let that happen. Marathons are not made in the first half mile, the first 5K. You can mess them up, but you're not going to make your race in that amount of time. So control. Listen to your breathing. If your breathing sounds like you're running the 10K and you're running the marathon, you might want to adjust. For the 5K and 10K, you warmed up well. You're going to be out fast. There's still some sense of holding back, because no matter what the race distance is, mistakes are usually made early. In the 5K, it's in the first maybe minute. Certainly the first couple minutes, usually the biggest mistakes in the 5K. And the 10K, if you go through 2 miles and you think, I feel like I'm at 4, there's your mistake. It's early. Half marathon and marathon, obviously, it's the same deal. Now, let's talk about race plan just briefly. I have some other videos that we talk about that in a little bit more detail. But briefly, we want to break it down to how should I feel at this point in the race, maybe the first 5K, the first 5 miles, however you want to break that down. And in Training Peaks, I have a suggested plan for that. But if you think through that, remind yourself, okay, I'm in the first however many miles. Here's what I said I wanted to feel like. I said I want to be comfortable, and I'm uncomfortable. Am I throwing the race plan out already? No. Back it down, run the plan. There is a point where it's a test of toughness. How much pain are you willing to endure? But that's not early. So go through that plan and race your race. And then there's a point where maybe in the 5K, maybe it's 1.5 miles, maybe it's 2 miles. In the 10K, it's maybe 5K, 4 miles. In the half marathon, I like to think 15K is about where, okay, now this is really tough. And what can I do over these last couple miles? In the marathon, we know typically it's somewhere between 16 and 20, where it starts to feel like a real deal. Maybe it's later than that. And if you can push back that fight a little bit further, that's great. So think about that plan. You've rehearsed it. throughout the last couple days before the race so you know what to be thinking. From a nutrition, hydration standpoint, stick with that plan as well, but be flexible with it. And the mistake that you can make with hydration, and I'm going to surprise some of you here in what I'm going to say, is drinking too much too soon. If you're standing at the start line and you have done your job and you are as hydrated as possible, and you take off in the first aid station, you're down in 6-8 ounces, 12 ounces, whatever you can get in, that might be too much too soon. You haven't had time to sweat out any of that yet, so you don't really need it. Your body is really good at maintaining equilibrium. And if you're fully hydrated and you're taking in more that you don't need yet, that's going to be a problem. So maybe the first couple, you're okay. Now, I wouldn't go too long. You get a half hour in, okay, now we need to start paying attention to this. Make sure that you start getting the fluid, because there is a point, and this is what many of you expected me to say, and I will, is that if you wait too long, I got a good one going, I don't want to slow down, I don't want to lose this pack to get this water. Those are the mistakes that will haunt you later, because yeah, you got to stay with that pack, but you missed the water, and now you're going to drop off later when it really matters. If that happens early on, you can catch back up to that pack. Eventually everybody's going to have to drink, or they're going to fall off the race anyway. So have that plan, be flexible with it. If you have this great drinking plan and your stomach starts sloshing, okay, we need to back off. It's a little bit too much for whatever the conditions are today, whatever your hydration level is. So have the plan, but be flexible with it. With the nutrition, take that in. The biggest thing I can tell you there are gels that might go down really well in training, might not go down quite as well on race day if you're going faster. If you're a little bit dehydrated, they don't go down as well. So take your time taking that gel. Back in the olden days, gel was really thick and you needed to take water with it. And it was a little bit of this timing thing. I got to have my water, I have to have my gel, I got to get all this down, I got to keep going, I got to keep my pick, all this stuff going through your head. Now, most of them have enough fluid to it that you can take them slowly over time, and it's okay if you don't have water to choke it down with. So maybe you decide, okay, I need my first gel in the marathon at 6 miles. I'll grab that. Maybe you spend a mile taking it, because also, you know, if you take the big thing, you can't breathe and you have to recover from taking the gel. So if you're just taking a little bit at a time, it goes down much better. And then also there's another mile down. Anytime we can count down a mile in a long race, that's a good thing. So with sugar, salt, and water, we want that IV drip, right? You're losing sugar, salt, and water at a certain rate, given your pace and the conditions. You want to be taking that in at a similar rate as well. Let's talk briefly about weather. I looked just before I started recording this, because normally I don't look at weather until maybe the day before. In part because we've had a couple of days recently where we've had 3 different types of weather in one day, and who knows what will happen between now and gun time on Saturday. But right now it looks like no alibi weather, and by that I mean it looks really good. Now, I didn't see a wind, and that obviously is a big deal any time of the year, but especially in the spring. We had wind earlier today that I wondered if my house was going to be standing after it came through. So that's a big variable in this, but the temperatures look great right now. But be prepared for everything in your planning and what you pack. If it's windy, maybe you have arm warmers or even a jacket or a long sleeve top over the top into the wind, and maybe you tie it around your waist, because you might feel too warm and then you turn back into the wind and you need it again. Okay, so plan for those eventualities. If it's windy, you know what to do. Hide behind people, work together, whatever it is. Look for other PBT singlets. So you know you have a teammate, you know that they've been told the same thing you have, and you can work together and fight that wind. Hopefully, if it is a significant wind, it's coming from the south, for the marathoners anyway, because it's that lonelier stretch heading north. When you get to the heart of the second half of the marathon, coming back down, you'll have a headwind, but there you're protected a little bit. So nothing we can do about that. Just plan for it. As those that ran Sam Costa a couple weeks ago realized pretty quickly, if they wanted to run a certain pace, they better be out faster than that, because that tailwind was strong, but that tailwind turned into a headwind towards the end. And if you didn't have a little bit of a cushion in pace, you weren't going to make it up at the end. Now, what's important to make a distinction about here, I'm not talking about working too hard to get ahead on pace. I'm talking about working the right effort. And if you're working the right effort and you have a 20-mile-an-hour tailwind, it's going to be faster than you planned on. But also, when you come back into that 20-mile-an-hour wind working just as hard, you're going to be giving it back. Okay? So there's some things to think about for race day. Logistically, I'll look forward to seeing you at the Expo, unless you figured out how to get somebody to pick up your packet for you. I'll be there at opening at 11 o'clock through most of the day. I'll probably head out when I stop seeing enough of you to make it worth being there, because I want to be ready for race day as well. So I'll be there until at least 6 o'clock. We'll see how that plays out. But I look forward to talking to you there. Expos are sitting around for an hour, and then you have 6 or 10 people all at once. However that works out, make sure you stop by, say hi. I want to make sure that you're okay. Again, some of this is to calm my nerves more than yours, but just let me know you're doing okay. And if you have any questions, certainly we can address those before race day. And if it's something logistical race-wise, sure would be nice to figure that out at the Expo, because all the experts are there, and we'll find an answer if I don't already know. Okay? And then race morning, I'll be set up as early as I can, certainly well before the sun comes up. We'll have the tent up. That last turn as you're heading down to the finish line, use that as a base. I'll be there most of the day. So after your race, if you can bring yourself to climb back up that hill, to come see me and let me know how it goes, I'd love to hear from you. We do have a good mix between 5K, 10K, half marathon, and marathon. So we have a good representation in each of the races. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how you do. This is one of the bigger races, again, as I mentioned earlier, for the spring, for the team, in terms of the number of people that we have in one race. Heck, we have some Boston runners that will be racing next week, are doing something here, whether they're pacing or running a shorter race or whatever. So it's a good team day. I'm looking forward to sharing it with you.